Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Root to Ring, a resilient parenting podcast. My name is Abby. I'm your host and fellow mom in the middle of messy motherhood right alongside you. Now, at the time of this recording, it is October, so happy October. It's probably my favorite month of the year because it's birthday month for myself and many others that I know and love. And I also really like October because it feels like it's getting into a new season, kind of this like autumn season when things are starting to theoretically slow down, even though life kind of picks up a lot. And so when I think about the actual part of the season of like winter, spring, summer, fall, and I think about autumn, I think about kind of this internal reflection, this kind of inward place that we sometimes go to, which is why I really want to focus on my October episodes being focused on the root work, kind of doing that internal reflection, thinking about what's going on the inside. And so that's kind of what we're going to be kicking off this October. So whenever you're listening, it's going to be applicable no matter what, but especially because fall is in the air, I am feeling that sense of wanting to turn inward, wanting to do some self-reflection, to also think about what areas of growth I can really lean into between autumn and winter before spring. So with that in mind, as we're talking about the root work this October, today we're actually going to be focusing on why you keep snapping even when you, quote, know better. And I put that in quotes because, yes, you do know better, but my motto is no shame, no blame. You are probably beating yourself up enough. And so that's what I want to talk about today is why you might keep snapping, even though you know deep in your core, like, Abby, I do not want to be snapping. I don't want this to be my go-to. I'm learning and I'm knowing how to do better, so why can't I just be better? And I think even that quote, I've heard it, that if you know better, you'll do better or be better. In fact, I think I've said it, that I know the intent behind it is meant to be inspirational. It's meant to be motivational. It's meant to actually be implementable. We're just going to stick with all the all words today. But I don't want it to be a quote that keeps you stuck in shame. And if you're like, man, I know better and I'm not doing better, I don't want you to keep going like, well, then I'm never going to do better. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and I'm going to stay steeped in my shame and my guilt. And it's just going to be a terrible, awful cycle. No, that is what I'm here today, is to help you understand maybe where that's coming from. Maybe this idea of, I know better, I've been learning, and then how do I actually start to do better or do different than what I have been? And so I want you to think about some of the ways that you have been interacting with your teen, some of the like do better moments. Maybe that is thinking about, am I snapping? Am I still shutting down? Do I feel automatically in my body this sense of tension when my teen walks into the room? And when we talk about this idea of knowing better and doing better, you might be thinking, okay, so now that I do know better, why do I keep snapping? I've been trying to do the work. Why am I still spiraling when things get hard? And just an option that maybe underneath it is not this like, hey, if I really wanted to change, wouldn't I have figured it out by now? But more so, it's not that you're not trying hard enough. It's that you're trying to change behavior while your body is still stuck in survival mode. So it's not about, I'm not doing better, I know what to do, and I'm just not doing it. Sometimes it's not just about what's going up in our minds. Sometimes it's also about what's going on in our bodies that we kind of need to bring within congruence in order to really see change occur. So that's what we're going to be unpacking today. And this first part, I do want to talk about mindset. Now, mindset really does matter. I think about how I've had a couple of people, even this week, where they're like, see, Abby, it totally happened. And we talked about their mindset, and I'm like, yeah, well, what was your mindset going into it though? And they're like, well, that I was going to fail, that it was going to be awful. I was like, oh, okay, so you failed and it was awful because you went into it thinking, I'm going to fail and this is going to be awful. And so that's where I want you to think about sometimes what's going through your mind really is going to help set you up for success or failure. And when we talk about that, I know I often will tell you you're not failing. You're oftentimes overloaded or you're doing your best. And that's where, when I'm talking about failing, I need you to understand you are not a failure. You are going to fail. You are going to make mistakes, and that is okay. It's about how you get back up again. That's the whole idea behind resilience. And so when I even talk about failing, I don't want you to automatically think, oh, mindset, yep, I'm a failure. I want you to think mindset, I'm allowed to fail. It's a part of my learning process. So when we're talking about mindset matters, like mindset work and how much it matters, it really does. It is, our minds are really powerful, and mindset alone won't regulate your nervous system. So if you're sitting there thinking like, I'm going to do great, everything's fine, and you're sitting over there like into a bag, and you're like, I'm so scared, I'm so nervous, and like you're telling everything in your body that you're not okay, even though you're trying to tell your mind and convince your mind you're okay, they might not be in sync just yet. And so when we're talking about your body, this is where I'm introducing more of this like nervous system regulation. And I don't know about you, but that has felt kind of like a buzz phrase, so to speak, a couple of buzzwords in the past few years. And so I want to correct my version of nervous system, that it's not just something that's trendy and the latest and greatest. Our nervous system is literally a part of our bodies. It's a system within our body, just like we have skin and we have organs and we have hair and we have all these different things that are going on and in and outside of our bodies. Our nervous system is part of it. And you might be like, yeah, no, duh, Abby, what are you talking about? Like, everybody talks about nerves, everybody talks about these things. But when we're talking about your nervous system, it's more than just being nervous. This is really more about kind of like your emotional system. This is about some of the sensations that you have when you're going through life. When you feel kind of off one day, when you just like woke up and you're like, did I wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Sometimes, yeah, you genuinely did not get a very good night's sleep, but sometimes that can be part of your nervous system because you feel dysregulated, because emotionally things aren't going well, because sensation wise, whether it's through hormones or because of emotions or because of information that you're being fed, that it's like those are all things that are informing your nervous system and part of how you're feeling either regulated or dysregulated. And so as we talk about this more, and if you ever have questions about nervous system, definitely let me know. There's a lot of different professionals I really admire who speak about nervous system from their own practice. One of my favorite people who is a chiropractor talks about nervous system work from her perspective and how adjustments on her end help people with regulating nervous system. And so that's where I'm just telling you my 2 cents of what nervous system is, that there's multiple different ways we can approach it. And I think everybody's going to have their own perspective. But ultimately, the end goal is that we are trying to have more regulated nervous systems, that our nervous system can be functional and optimal and allow us to operate in this world as effectively as possible. So that's my little spiel on nervous systems and why when I say mindset matters, it does, but also we've got to really make sure we're regulating our nervous system, our bodies, our emotions, our sensations. And that doesn't mean, okay, I'm telling you, you got to just try harder. You didn't do it good enough, because you will not hear that from me. But the question really is, what is my body trying to protect? When I feel like I've been learning these things and I've been practicing my mindset and I've been working, but it just still doesn't feel great in my body. My stomach is still in knots. I still have a lump in my throat. Sometimes I feel like I might cry if my teen says the wrong thing to me, or worse, I just feel that like yell bellowing up inside me of like, I'm going to explode one way, shape, or form. And so I want you to think about, what is your body trying to protect you from? what are those sensations signaling to you? Because most of the moms that I work with don't necessarily need more information on mindset. Like there is more info and maybe not info on mindset. There's work to be done on mindset. But oftentimes the moms I'm working with don't necessarily need more education from the place of blame and shame. They actually just need more tools. They need to learn how to regulate themselves. They need to learn how to calm their nervous systems. They need to learn how to show up differently. And so that's some of that integration work I was talking about. Is sometimes you might find yourself that you have more capacity than you realize, that you might be giving yourself just a skosh of credit for the capacity you actually have. And some of that is coming from a place of you've not really had the opportunity to practice. So that's where I talk about, like, if you've tried all the scripts, if you've read all the books, if you followed all the pages and you're still finding yourself snapping, numbing, shutting down, it's not because you're failing. It's because your nervous system might feel at capacity. And you're asking it to do something it hasn't done yet. And I also want to mention the difference between capability versus capacity, which is also where I have such a strong belief and believe in you that you have the ability to change because you are capable of that. And you've been in a season of life where your capacity might not feel like you have much room to give. But we can grow your capacity, especially because we know that you're capable of so much. That's also, I know I'm trying not to bounce around too much, but going back to the mindset piece, that I'm not saying mindset is not important. It is. But if your body feels like I only have capacity for this itty bitty bit much today, then your mind is going to buy into that. Versus starting to, and maybe that's the way we can look at this too, is using our mindset to believe I might feel at capacity today and I have the capability to grow in my capacity. And that's going to help give your nervous system the freedom that it needs to start to grow and expand and try things in a different and new way. So that's one part of this, is mindset matters and nervous system matters. The next part is I want to talk about how your body remembers what your mind tries to override. So when you're stuck in this survival mode, and when I'm talking about nervous system, that's also survival mode, is kind of those sensations that come up of fight, flight, or freeze. Your brain might be constantly scanning for threats, not because you're unsafe, but because you feel unsafe. And that might look like feeling on edge from the moment your teen walks in the door, like I was saying, or snapping over a small request, maybe even avoiding a conversation because you're afraid you're going to say something you'll regret. That's when we're talking about this sense of failure and fear, is that you are not unsafe, but your body feels unsafe, and your body is trying to protect you from doing something that would be unsafe. But that's where we have to shift and understand and rewire in your body, remind your nervous system that just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it is automatically unsafe. Like we were talking about last week with guilt, and that guilt is a tool and that it doesn't always feel very good, but it's a signal and it's helpful for us to tune into. Similar to that, when we're talking about some of these changes in our nervous system, when your nervous system is so programmed and so used to having to keep you safe, anything outside of its parameters of what it's designated as safe could potentially feel unsafe, even though the reality of it is more uncomfortable than actually unsafe. So what I want you to hear is that your nervous system isn't the problem. It's literally doing its job. And as part of its job trying to protect you, we are also going to ask it to expand those parameters, to start to understand that it doesn't need to be in constant scan and survival mode. In fact, I was going through one of the workshops I had done earlier this year and talking about being a lifeguard and how when I was a lifeguard, I had to scan the water in such an intense pattern of like up, down, and side to side and side to side. And that is really beneficial for lifeguarding because you're on constant lookout and you're paying attention to the water. You want to make sure nobody's unsafe, but it can be really exhausting. If your nervous system is parenting from that place, it makes sense that you might be exhausted. And we're not asking for your nervous system to do more. We're asking for it to shift so that it can do things differently so that you can show up. And this is what I'm talking about full circle with. When we know better, we can then do better. But we've got to be able to manage and we've got to be able to grow our capacity for our nervous system so that we can actually take action on the mindset shifts that we've been working on. I hope that all makes sense. Some of it sometimes feels like an infinity loop of cycle where it's like this feeds into this and that feeds into that. But the thing is when we're working on it together, that's part of what you need. And so I don't want you to beat yourself up. I don't want you to beat your nervous system up. But I do want you to recognize if I'm constantly parenting from that place of vigilance, of fight, flight, or freeze, it can become hard to parent from calm or connection, no matter how badly you want it. So, next section here is I want to talk to you about the root work. This is what we're going to talk about for today's October topic, which is a different way to shift. So one of the shifts that I do teach inside my rooted coaching framework, I don't know why that was such a hard sentence, but you don't need to push harder. You might need to pause deeper. So rooted work is not about perfect behavior or performing in a calm manner 24/7. It's about learning what safety feels like in your body so you can lead your team from that place. So when I talk about calm is not a personality trait, it is a leadership skill that can be learned. This is part of what I'm talking about too, is that learning how to regulate your nervous system is work. I'm not saying it's easy breezy, but that is part of the skill that you can learn for yourself so that when you regulate your nervous system, you're then able to show up from a different place with your team. And sometimes this does feel like the deep breathing. I know I get pushback from people sometimes where they're like, Abby, I'm not just going to sit here and breathe and everything's going to be better. And I'm like, that's fair. That might not be what works for you. For some people, you're like, I need 3 deep breaths and I suddenly feel calm and grounded again. But oftentimes you might be in freeze mode and you forget to breathe. And so that's where I like to meet everybody where they're at with the different need that they have to be able to find what kind of nervous system regulation is going to work for you so that we can essentially bring our nervous system back online, be able to calm it, and then connect with our teen in an effective way. And truthfully, before we even connect with our teens, you might need just a moment to connect with yourself. That I find that with our nervous systems, when we're feeling dysregulated, it's not always the case, but more often than not, it's because we're struggling to tolerate the discomfort of whatever sensation's coming up. And when we're thinking about shame and when we're thinking about guilt, and we're thinking about like how uncomfortable those thoughts and feelings can be, it can be really hard to want to sit there and connect with them. And I'm not saying you have to sit there and be besties with your shame and guilt. I'm just saying once you're able to tolerate that feeling and realize, okay, this is a signal. This is telling me something's going on. I need to tune in and pay attention so that I can then address whatever is going on. It allows you to work through that feeling so that you can then show up the way you want to. Instead of operating from that place of fear, you got to operate from a place of being regulated and connected with yourself and then your team. So when you're regulated, you get to make different choices. Like you might actually pause before you react. You might name what's going on without the spiral. You might even get to repair quicker after a rupture, or you get to stop parenting from fear and start leading from that grounded place. So this is the invisible work that's going to create visible changes in how you are showing up in your parenting. It's not flashy, it's not instant, but this is what actually sticks. And like I was talking about last week as well, that sometimes growth feels daunting. Sometimes it feels unattractive, unappealing. Like, I don't know that I want to do that because it looks hard. But I think about it this way, where is what you're doing right now serving you in any way, shape, or form? If it is, then you're like, great, I don't know that I necessarily need this specific tool. But if what you're doing isn't working for you, then odds are you might need to do some uprooting. Pay attention to what's going on below the surface so that you can address it effectively. Like I said, that invisible work, so that you get to see visible changes. And I know I refer to this often, but it's because it's the root of my business, of my passion, of my purpose within my coaching. And even like the name of my podcast, I chose it specifically because roots tend to be the invisible stuff. That's the stuff that's below the surface that we don't get to see, whereas the rings of a tree are the visible, tangible results of that tree's growth. And so when we're talking about these things, and I know it's really hard to feel like, okay, but Abby, the work that I'm doing isn't always going to be visible. Not always. Maybe not at first, but it doesn't mean it's unimportant. Because when we're looking at a tree grow, we're not always sitting there looking at like, wow, look at those roots. Look at how deep they go. Look at how healthy they are. But you get to see that in the way that the tree is growing. And I always love to look at those pictures that like go below the surface and see how far and wide roots have grown and how deep they start to get connected and even connecting with other trees. And so even though you might not get to see it, and I know that feels a little bit silly, but I kind of love that idea, is like have that reminder for you where you're like, I am working on some healthy roots right now. I am growing a beautiful tree. I am growing a beautiful legacy that I might not get to see day 1 or day 2, but year 3, 4, 5, I'm for sure going to get to see these things because the actions and steps that I'm taking today to take care of my roots are going to impact my tree rings, not for days, but for years to come. So got a little off topic there for a moment, but that is the idea behind the root work and shifting, because I want you, that's again, one of my biggest passions and goals in wanting to help support moms is that there is so much information out there right now, like so much. It's inundating. It's overwhelming. And some of it is beneficial, but some of it is just noise. And if it's not beneficial for you, if it's not helping you change things, if it's not implementable and sustainable, I don't want it for you. And that includes myself too, that if you ever feel like this information is not implementable for you, let me know. Because for me, it is not helpful for anybody if I am just sharing information and you can't do anything with it. That I want you to have change that actually sticks. I want you to have a legacy that you are proud of. I want you to have relationships with your teens who are going to become young adults, who are going to become parents of their own, and be able to, you have relationships with your children who are young adults and have relationships with their children and your grandkids. And I want health and I want prosperity for your family. I want that longevity. I want that legacy. And that starts with the root work of what we're doing today. Whew, thank you for coming to my soapbox on that. I want to take a moment to shift into the next section, which is what you can do instead of spiraling. And so the next time you feel yourself about to snap, I want you to pause and ask, what does my body need right now? Tune in. Pay attention. Do you have a knot in your stomach? Does your throat have a lump in it? For me, sometimes it sounds dumb, but when I'm driving, if I have to slam on my brakes, my big toe throbs. That's how I know, okay, this driving situation is making me nervous right now. What do I need to do? Should I be in the fast lane right now? Should I be behind this car that is slamming on their brakes? Do I need to pay attention to my speed, right? It's all a signal. So thinking about, what does my body need right now? Am I trying to control this moment or stay connected in it? And when I think about control, not that we're always thinking about it this way, but that's where sometimes I think fight, flight, or freeze comes in, is our way of feeling like we're in control, but it doesn't always allow us to connect. So thinking about, can I give myself a 30-second reset before responding so that I can say something that's more connecting than rupturing? And if your answer is no, because you're already past that point of no return, that's okay too. That's where there's other tools, other things you can implement. It's not about catching it every single time, right? That's part of the practice, is you're going to become attuned to it so you actually know what you're paying attention to. But it is about returning. This is a rhythm, not a report card. And last section here for today is that support should not be shaming for you. Now, I do believe in accountability with work, but I also believe that sometimes instead of holding people accountable, we sometimes just need to hold them close. And I like to try to find that blend specifically in my coaching, because a lot of the moms I work with are beating themselves up already, are telling themselves all these terrible messages, are kind of like being their own worst enemy. And so sometimes they need somebody that's going to be on their side and fight for them or fight against the thoughts that they have about themselves. And that's where my approach, my hope is, I don't want to just add more shame so that I already heaping pile of shame you might be holding on to. It doesn't mean I'm going to let you slip and slide, right? That one of the best compliments I ever got from somebody was somebody told me, Abby, you are so direct and kind and compassionate with your coaching, which I really appreciated, because I think sometimes when especially as we're looking at this culture right now that we're in, that it feels like we either have to be way too soft or we have to be like way too hard. Whereas I kind of feel like living in the middle ground is what people really need. A lot of times we are aware of our faults. We're aware of the things we're not proud of and not doing well. We need somebody to kindly and gently call that out, and also give us the compassion that we need to be able to make change, to walk alongside it. Especially as we're thinking about like what that does in rewiring our nervous system. Is it going to benefit you if I'm just yelling at you the whole time? No, certainly not, because I don't like that. But it's also not going to help you if I tell you everything's a-okay and you don't need anything ever again, and like just fluffiness, because that also doesn't help your nervous system. It gives it a false sense of security. And so thinking about support without that shame, it looks like these things that we've been practicing. And so I do want to share about my coaching community, my membership, so to speak, that we're not just talking about how to stay calm. We're actually going to practice it together. So if you're ready to get out of your head, back into your body, and finally create the kind of safety that sticks, I'd love to invite you to join the Rooted Parenting Circle with me. So this is a monthly space for resilient, reflective moms who want to raise emotionally healthy teens without losing yourself in the process. And what I mean by that too is I don't want you to feel like you have to be a different person or be someone that you're not. I want you to show up who you are as the parent that you currently are, but we are going to help you become the parent that you are capable of being. And I want you to hear that word, capability, because it doesn't mean I'm asking you to be a different mom. It doesn't mean I'm asking you to change yourself. It just means I'm asking you to grow in what you think and believe you're capable of, because I know what you are capable of, and it's more than you're probably giving yourself credit for. So this is that monthly space that I want to invite you into, and doors are opening officially on October 28th. So if you're listening after, it is all good. The circle is staying open year round, but I am so excited that I'm going to be able to offer this. So waitlist is open now, and I really do want this to be that soft place to land with kindness and directness. So be able to give you what you need while also creating the space and the environment that you need to be in. So that's going to look like some monthly Q&A calls, some trainings, even weekly prompts. And I'm going to have some nervous system tools that are either already currently created in my vault that I have to double check, or They're going to be tools that I'm going to be creating for you and sending out monthly. Again, things I want you to be able to implement, things that I want you to be able to go and practice. Tools that you probably didn't grow up with, and I'm going to put it all in one space for you. So if you want more info, please DM the word circle to me on Instagram, or even head over to my website, www.rootedinresiliencecollective.com. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but you can join the waitlist now. So I want you to remember that you are not a bad mom for feeling triggered. You are a brave one, right? You are showing up and you are actually trying to do the root work for yourself, for your family, and your future family. Your family now is going to thank you, but even your future family is going to be so thankful for the work that you're doing for yourself, because it's going to have that ripple effect. It's going to impact your teens. It's going to impact your future grandchildren one day. And so I really just want to commend you for showing up, even though you might be feeling like you're holding on by a thread today. You're like, Abby, you do not know the kind of conversation I had. You know what? That's okay, because you're still showing up and you're trying to do things differently. So again, thank you so much for being here. Next week, we are going to be talking about what it really looks like to self-regulate when your teen is in a full-blown meltdown and you are trying to stay calm, but that doesn't always work, right? So until then, I want you to breathe deep, regulate that nervous system, and please remember, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be rooted.